All right. Hello, everybody. I see 4 p.m. my time, and I'm going to get us all started. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Caroline Varon. I am the CEO and co-founder of Professors Without Borders. And in partnership with the Alhambra US Chamber and CL Educate India, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Now, before we get started, I will go over a few housekeeping items. Throughout the session, you will be muted, but if you could please leave your camera on so we can see you, especially when we take the screenshot, we want to see you in there. This session is also going to be live streamed through Facebook. Now, the hour is intended to be interactive, so please send your questions through chat and our team will monitor and ask them appropriately. If you could also let us know where you live and how you found out about this session through the chat, that would be really useful in helping us organize the next talks of this series. Now, I am absolutely delighted to be introducing you to Ambassador Uzumcu, who is a Nobel laureate recipient, former Turkish ambassador to Israel, representative to NATO and the United Nations. And he is going to be interviewed today by an equally impressive and special person, Ahmet Üzümcü, his daughter, who has been on the front line of his whole life and can ask all of the questions that we would all like to ask. And I'm very excited that she is going to be joining us. Irmak is also equally impressive in her own right. She is a case handler for the European Union and probably knows quite a lot of the secrets that we're not getting our hands on. I've heard some of them in the corridors. So if you get an opportunity to ask her some questions, please do so too. So without further ado, thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us. Thank you so much, Irmak, for making this happen. And Anjum, for organizing this speaker series. Thank you very much. And Irmak, I leave it to you.
Thank you, Caroline. And thanks for that kind introduction. I certainly don't feel as impressive, but by association, I'll take some of the glory. So yes, hello everyone, and hi Dad. I, as you may have seen from the short bio, did not follow in my father's footsteps. So I took a bit of a different path, but that doesn't mean that I'm not fascinated by diplomacy, by international affairs, by how events unfold and the people that influence them. So a lot of the things that you'll be hearing today, I had the privilege to witness firsthand or hear about again firsthand. So it's very exciting, and I'll never tire of hearing these stories, from the serious to the lighthearted and everything in between. So let's kick off. Dad, Baba, Ambassador, can you tell us about how it all started for you? How did you end up becoming a diplomat?
Sure, thank you. First of all, let me thank Caroline, Anjum, and you, Irmak, for hosting me at this Ambassadors Series program. It's a pleasure for me to be with you and the other participants. So actually my path to become a diplomat has been very much, coincidental. It wasn't foreseen, it wasn't planned. When I went to middle school in Izmir, my hometown, I was planning actually, as my father did, to stay in Izmir, to become a partner of him and expand his commerce and study there. But one, day in the month of July, after I finished my middle school, a French school run by Jesuit, priests, I came across of a friend, a classmate, who told me that he would continue his studies in Istanbul in another French medium school. And he asked me actually to join him to go for an entry exam there in a month or so. So I said, I'll speak to my dad, which I did. Actually, initially he was hesitant, but finally he agreed to take me to the exam. I succeeded. It was a boarding school. It was quite difficult for me to adapt at the beginning. At the age of 15, I went away from the family. At the boarding school, the meals were not, as good as my mom's. But in the end, I got used to it. And after 4 years of studies, actually during those 4 years of studies, I changed my mind. Actually, it became at the third year. I said, no, I'm going to do something else. I read a lot and I knew a little more, what was happening in the outside world. So I thought that I should travel, know new countries, new cultures, new people, and the best way to do it at that time was to join the diplomatic service. So before I finished the high school, it was in 1970, I told my dad that I would go to study political sciences in Ankara, the capital of the country, and then I would join the foreign service. So he was a little disappointed, I must say, at that time, and he changed his mind. He didn't change his mind until I became an ambassador, when he came to visit with my mom, to Israel, where it was my first ambassadorship. He never admitted that it was a right decision on my part. Then he said in Israel, yes, it was a good decision, my son. So that was more or less the story of me joining the foreign service. And I must add that I never regretted this decision. I have always enjoyed my, career, diplomatic career. So actually, I got what I wanted. I traveled a lot during my career, and I met a lot of people, including several dignitaries. And I must say it was a rewarding, career of 42 years.
Thanks for telling us the story of the beginnings, and you indeed got what you wanted, and again, by association, me and my mom also got to travel and meet all kinds of people and learn new cultures. So that was definitely a positive byproduct of your career as well. Maybe take me a step back, or Anjum, did you want to intervene?
Certainly. There was a question that came in, Ambassador. You talked about your father's acceptance of your decision. What about your mother?
Actually, my mother was more supportive, I should say, because I think she trusted my judgment, more than my father. My father had, of course, some ambitions. He didn't speak foreign languages, and this was the reason, actually, he wanted to send me to the French school. So he thought that if I learned a foreign language, it would give us the opportunity to, to make his business bigger, interacting with, foreign businessmen and so on. And that was the main, principle, I should say, argument on his part. Whereas my mother thought that, I was, according to her, as it happens to be for all moms, I was a smart, boy, and if I decided to do so, then it would be the right decision.
Thank you.
I do wonder if she ever reconsidered when she realized you'd be far away for a great deal.
Yes. Yeah, that is the disadvantage. Perhaps I should add here that, although, as I said, I was fully satisfied with my diplomatic career, my profession, there are, of course, also downsides, especially for the family. My wife, who is a civil engineer, and actually she studied more than I did. She has a master's degree in Scotland, and when we met, she was working in a government research laboratory. But when we decided to get married, she had to leave, to quit. And unfortunately, at that time, there were no opportunities to work, abroad. when she was next to me into Austria, then to Syria. So she had to abandon her profession. So that was really a pity for her. And equally difficult is for the children because they have to change schools, they have to meet new people, new friends. So that's not easy. And when you change an environment, especially the languages and so on, it's quite a challenge. So that's what happened to Irmak. Maybe she could add, herself, how much she suffered out of that. But on the other hand, I know from Irmak as well as from my friends' children that they become quite resilient, and so they are internationalized, and they can easily adapt to any country. After a certain age. They know foreign languages, so that's the advantages of being diplomats' children. But again, it's not always easy.
Yeah, I can confirm that it wasn't always easy, but looking back as an adult, I think it's a huge gift actually, and the pros definitely outweigh the cons. Because even more than resilience, one thing that I take for granted, I realize is linked to my upbringing, is the fact that what I value, tolerance, lack of prejudice, acceptance of all kinds of people, this is something that just came along with the lifestyle. So it was a given for me. And I would love to be able to pass that on to my children one day. But I'm very grateful for that. I think that's certainly not the kind of thing that can be, it can be received so easily in a different environment where if you grow up in the same place for your whole life. But so it's not always easy, and maybe that ties into the next question I had for you, which is what does it take to be a good diplomat in general? I mean, so there are elements of family as well, but for the individual, what does it mean, and what does it take?
Yeah. I think if you join the foreign service, and if you want to be successful in your career, and if you want to be, respected, to become a respected diplomat, first of all, you have to read them. You have to be updated, and you need to follow. It's not a 8 hours job. So you don't start at 9 and finish at 6 and it's over. No, you have to be actually alert on what's happening in the world. First of all, in the country, in your country, as well as in the country where you are posted, if you are abroad, but also in the immediate neighborhood and at the world at large. So. Apart from that, I think you need to be trusted by your colleagues first, but also by the people with whom you interact. So, in order to be trusted, of course, you shouldn't use double talk. You shouldn't say something with them and something else totally different with others. You shouldn't lie. I mean, I read something just 2 days ago, and the writer argues that diplomats always lie. It's not true. I mean, I totally disagree with that. I think if you start lying, then of course after a while, everyone will find it out, and no one will trust you. So instead, you should be trusted, because if they trust you, then they can communicate with you. They can speak openly, and diplomacy is an art, in my view, to compromise. So if you are able to negotiate and compromise and convince your interlocutors, then you're successful. It's not a war. It's not a struggle. It's a way of actually interacting, communicating, and convincing your interlocutors, empathizing with your counterparts, because you have to try to understand the other side's positions as well. So if you can find a middle ground, then it means that you have a chance to be successful, because in the end, no one should feel that he or she is losing. So the two sides should find a way for a win-win situation. So it's not easy, but it's doable. So diplomacy, in my view, is also a way of life in many senses. But the first principle should be to try to understand each other, and to be ready for compromises, for a give and take, and to find an agreeable solution for both sides, or in multilateral diplomacy, for every side who is involved. I should add here perhaps the big difference between bilateral diplomacy and multilateral diplomacy, because bilateral diplomacy means, when you represent your own country in another country, and you protect, of course, the interests of the country you represent, but also you try to promote the relations between the two countries. So that's something very important, of course, and also very satisfying from a professional point of view, because you may start a project with the country you are posted, and then you can actually finalize this project during your term, and you see the concrete results, benefits of it for both sides, and you can take credit of it. So that's really something which many of my colleagues actually preferred to go for bilateral posts rather than multilateral work. Actually, I did both. And in Vienna, Syria, as well as ambassador in Israel, I worked in bilateral work. But I was in multilateral work also at NATO in Geneva, and lastly, actually as Director General at the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. So multilateral work is a collective one. And whatever you do, actually, if there is a positive result, then it's a collective success. So you cannot take probably personal credit out of it, but if the end something succeeds, then you can take all of your credit. And usually, in multilateral work, the achievements are much greater, actually. And I enjoyed this multilateral work in every place, NATO, UN, as well as OPCW. And they are different, as I said, but both have, from a professional point of view, advantages and disadvantages.
Thank you for shedding light on that aspect that may not be so obvious to laymen like myself. Anjum, is there a question at the moment, or can I follow up with something?
You could go ahead. We'll get with you now.
Ermak, I don't hear you.
Oh.
I couldn't hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Now, yes.
Okay, then I'll follow up with the next question, which was going to be, you talked about successes and achievements. What is the moment that you're most proud of during your career, or the success, the achievement? If you could tell us a bit about that.
There's no doubt that the biggest success, it's not personal, but again, as it happens to be in multilateral work, is a collective one. The Nobel Peace Prize, which was awarded to the organization that I was leading at that time. And let me tell you briefly the story. Actually, when I joined this organization in July 2010, this happened after an election process. So there were we were seven candidates, and after 5 rounds of voting, the member states agreed to select me as the new Director General, and I started my job in July 2010. I thought that this would be rather a quite, period in my lifetime. So I would stay either 4 years or another 4 years, 8 years, then I would retire. It didn't happen so. First of all, I had to deal with the future of the organization. So I put together a group of experts, ex-ambassadors, former ambassadors, and they had to prepare a report, suggesting that the organization would remain relevant in the future, in the foreseeable future, because there were several tasks to be accomplished other than destruction of the existing stockpiles of chemical weapons, mainly in the United States and the Russian Federation, but also in a few other countries. And so the first 2 years was relatively calm, but in March 2011, when the events started in Syria, I thought that at some stage we could be called upon and we could get involved as the organization, because we knew that there were chemical weapons in Syria and they needed to be destroyed at some stage, and the OPCW could be asked to monitor or to lead this process. So that's what happened. In 2013, after the first use of chemical weapons in Syria, the UN at that time, since Syria was not a member, conducted an investigation. They found out that sarin was used. Then the Russian Federation and the United States agreed to make Syria a member of the state to the OPCW, and to ask OPCW to lead the destruction process. So that happened in September 2013. And coincidentally, there was actually a meeting which was planned with the Pope Francis in Rome on 27th September. This was a Friday. Because Pope Francis was a chemist before he became a priest. So when I met the Vatican ambassador in The Hague, I said, if the Pope comes to the Netherlands, you should bring him, to the OPCW. He said, I don't think he will come soon to the Netherlands, but why don't you go and ask for an audience and visit him in Vatican? I said, will he receive? Of course, he said. So he arranged the meeting. I went to Rome, to Vatican on 27th September, and he received me the same day. I flew back, and the decision was taken at the OPCW Executive Council, as well as the Security Council in New York the same day. And we started the process of destruction of chemical weapons in Syria. So this happened, as I said, at the end of September. On 10th of October, the Nobel Peace Prize Committee announced that the OPCW was awarded the Peace Prize. You may know, the participants may know that the Peace Prizes are awarded by a committee in Norway, in Oslo. All the other Nobel Prizes are actually awarded in Sweden. And the Norwegians, actually, both the government, the parliament, as well as the people, do have a high esteem for this ceremony and organization once a year of this award ceremonies and so on. And this happened just after the visit to the Pope. So I said we got the blessing of Pope Francis and now the Nobel Peace Prize. So the ceremony would take place on 10th of December. So we had 2 months in front of us. So I started to prepare my speech. They called it lecture, which would last about half an hour. And then we went together, actually, with Irmak, my wife, as well as 20 other people from The Hague to receive the prize. So the prize was, a medallion and a diploma, and as well as a check of $1 million. this was a really huge event, I must say. At the end of 3 days, I was really exhausted, but this was something that I will never forget. And I think the same applies to my colleagues as well as the family. I was received by the king and queen, and we had a rehearsal the first day. We had a dinner with the committee members. They explained to us how the awardees were selected. So, after a series of meetings during the year, selecting from preparing a shortlist from 200 plus candidates, nominees. And then at the end of the shortlist, which we were not aware at all that we were a nominee until the night before. So we saw some news on the internet the night before, that means 9th of October, that our name was mentioned as a possible awardee. And this was confirmed the next day on 10th. And I was at the meeting. I should add this because they wanted to reach me, but since I was at the meeting, they couldn't. My chief of cabinet, as British diplomat, came and whispered. He said, "We got the Nobel Peace Prize." I said, "Are you sure that no one is teasing with us?" He said, "No, it's confirmed." So I got a call from Oslo. Anyhow, so this was really, a unique event that we actually, I couldn't foresee anyhow in my whole career, and I feel very fortunate actually to be at the helm of this organization at the right time, and I will never forget it.
I won't either. I remember where I was when I heard. I was at the dentist, and I think you texted me, or somebody texted me, and I wanted to rush out of there, but obviously you don't.
Okay.
That's certainly unforgettable. Do you have another maybe funny anecdote in relation to this to share with us?
Oh, yes, I do. Actually, as I said, this is a medallion and a diploma, and we got it on 10th of December 2013 in Oslo, and since there is a competition between Sweden and Norway, Swedes think that whoever receives the Nobel Peace Prize should travel also to Stockholm and to give a lecture there. And so I couldn't refuse, of course. My chief of cabinet took back, I trust him, took back the medallion and diploma to The Hague, and I traveled to Stockholm. So I met there actually the foreign minister. I was received by the prime minister in Stockholm. Then we held a press conference, but I also went to a university where I spoke about what the OPCW has been doing and so on. Anyhow, the full week actually was I was busy with the prize and so on. So after we came back, we had already ordered showcase, which we placed at the entrance hall of the organization building in The Hague. And on 17th of December, we held a big ceremony with the participation of diplomats, the staff of the organization, and so on. And we unveiled the medallion and the diploma with the ceremony. So, this was, of course, well received because they were very proud of, working in an organization that got the prize. So they thought that they contribute to the success of the organization, which was correct. And after this ceremony, we of course put some cameras and alarm. So we thought that actually we always had some security at the entrance of the organization building, and I never thought that something serious would happen. In 2018, it was So just let me mention the money as well, because $1 million is quite a big money. Some people thought that I would get a percentage of it, which wasn't, of course, true. So the whole money would go to the organization. Then, after consulting a few colleagues of mine and the ambassadors, I thought that it would be good to establish our own prize, the OPCW prize, an annual prize which would be given to those who contributed to the success of the organization, not the staff, not the diplomats. It could be former staff, but provided that they were away for at least 5 years. And so we did so. Every year now, there's a selection committee of 5, including Director General, ex officio. So they select an awardee and give the prizes to the people or institutions. So coming back to the medallion, it was on 21st March 2018. This is among the participants. There might be people who are celebrating the Navruz. Navruz is the beginning of the spring, as you may know. And there's always a reception at the entrance hall, organized by Iran, Central Asian republics, Azerbaijan, and others. And diplomats are attending it. And I always asked to give a short speech, which I agreed. But the same day, we got actually a news that, from the French, that President Macron would come to The Hague upon the invitation of the Prime Minister as well as the King. But he would visit also the organization. So he would come straight from the airport to the organization at around 5 o'clock and or 5:30, then go to the other appointments. And this was exactly at the time of the reception. So that was really, something bad, because I wanted, of course, to take him, to show him the Nobel medallion. And in that situation, it wouldn't be easy because of the other guests who participate in the reception. So I, after consulting our security as well as colleagues, we decided to dysfunction the alarm, deactivate the alarm and the camera, and take the medallion up to the meeting room, first floor. So just was first floor, where I would meet with the presidents. And that's what happened. So he was very happy. He was accompanied with a delegation, but also journalists. So journalists entered the room, took pictures. 2 of us, next to the Nobel medallion. Then we had our meeting for half an hour. Then I, accompanied him to the door. He left. And one of my colleagues, after 5 or 10 minutes, came and said, the medallion is missing. I said, no, that can't be correct, because it was there. No, it's missing. So, what about the box? Because it was within the box. No, the box is also missing. So it was really a nightmare for me, and I didn't know what to do. So I was calculating, the price of the medallion, but I knew that we couldn't manufacture it because it was we were not allowed. Only the Nobel Committee Foundation could do it. So that was the worst that could happen. So I blamed myself why I decided to take it off from the so that was really terrible. Terrible half an hour or 40 minutes. Of course, I asked my colleagues to get in touch with people who were in the room, and including French, which they did. And they were able to reach the French ambassador by phone. And the French ambassador was asking on the phone, which medallion, what medallion? Nobel medallion. And the guy who was sitting just behind him, the aide-de-camp of President Macron, he took a box from his case, and he said, "Are you looking for this?" So aide-de-camp, who was not close enough to a conversation with his president, thought that it was a gift from my part to his president, and without telling anyone, he just closed the box and put it in his, in his case, and he took it away. So after 40 minutes, we learned about it, and it was a huge relief to me. But one advice I gave to my successor, who was Spanish ambassador actually at that time, I said, don't ever take out of the medallion, from the showcase. And if anyone wants to see it, so they should come near it and look at there. So that's the story. Actually, I kept it for myself for a while, but I learned that the French ambassador was sharing it with many people. So I understood that they didn't find it embarrassing, but rather funny, because President Macron also learned about it and he found it funny.
It is indeed. This one never gets old. The poor aide de camp must have had quite.
He must be embarrassed, yeah.
Undisclosed, unnamed. Before moving on to general and specific advice you may have for future diplomats, maybe one more question about your experience. What was the most difficult negotiation or political situation that you faced? The most challenging moment, let's say, of your diplomatic career?
Actually, the most challenging time in my career as a Turkish diplomat, because I spent 34 years in the Turkish Foreign Service, was my days in 2003 at NATO, when I was ambassador there. The then U.S. administration, President George Bush, decided to plan a military intervention in Iraq, and actually through Turkey initially, and he got some kind of endorsement from NATO, although NATO was not involved as an organization in such a military operation. The Americans insisted that NATO should issue a decision at the Permanent Council formed by ambassadors. So initially it looked that it could go smoothly, but it didn't. Some countries like Germany, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, so did oppose to such a decision. And we were caught somehow in the middle, as Turkey, because we are a neighboring country to Iraq, and we don't want to upset the Americans, of course, but nor the other countries. So, and it lasted about 3-4 weeks. We had long meetings. George Robertson was NATO Secretary General. And we had also some, consultations behind the doors. And it was a very painful exercise. And of course, the press was very much interested in these, consultations. So in the end, there was a decision, but it was a very difficult process. And as you all know, actually, in the end, what happened in Iraq was not really, something that anyone, including Americans, I guess, would desire. So the main problem was that the day after was not planned, and there was a chaos, because the old state structures, including military, were dismantled, and then we were faced with an anarchic situation, and the fallouts are still there, and no one knows actually when the situation will stabilize. Another anecdote, perhaps I could share with you, is during my last post as the Director General of the OPCW, although there the main responsibility lies with the with the member countries. So this is their responsibility about their decision. But because of Syria, there was a huge division between member countries. Those who were actually supporting the Syrian regime, Syrian government, like Russia, Iran, China, a few other countries, and but also there was a large group of countries who were critical of the use of chemical weapons in Syria and condemning it and trying to punish those who are responsible. And there was a large group in between who wanted to remain somehow neutral. And this made our job very difficult because in the end, we were tasked to monitor the situation, to investigate the allegations of use. And our experts found that the chemical weapons were used, both sarin, chlorine, and others. But Syrian supporters did contest such findings, such determinations. So in the end, some countries turned against us. So they were critical of the Secretariat. They thought that we were not impartial enough. The Director General did not behave properly, and so on. This was almost my last year, but it wasn't an easy time, I must say.
Okay. I think there's a question coming in from someone else.
Yeah, I have a good afternoon, first of all. I have a question regarding the current kind of diplomatic scandal, more so in a PR way, that happened during the diplomatic meeting between EU and Turkey, where the European Commission leader von der Leyen was not offered a chair to sit together with the president of Turkey and the president of European Council. And so I was just interested in what's your take on this event. If you think that this was rather an accidental failure of the diplomatic protocol, or was rather like intentionally exclusionary towards von der Leyen? And do you think that this incident had an impact on the negotiations that took place at the time? And so, and after, I have like a second question, which is more general towards the bilateral negotiations between the EU and Turkey, and how do you envision the relations developing in the foreseeable future? Do you think that besides resuming diplomatic talks, is there or what kind of progress is it possible to be made in like the foreseeable future, taking into account that recently Turkey withdrew from the Istanbul Convention, and also the number of femicides is very much on the rise at the moment. So these are the kind of things that the European Union takes as a setback in the relationship. So how do you kind of make sense of all of this at the moment, and how does it impact the relationship between EU and Turkey?
Mm-hmm. I think this seating arrangement was not intentional. It was rather a mistake on the part of both the people who are in charge of such matters, usually protocol at the presidential palace, as well as from the party of the head of commission, as well as the head of the European Council. So I think such things, I mean, after having spent 42 years in this domain, it's not up to the president or the head of commission or the head of council to take care of such things. I mean, it should be up to their colleagues, collaborators who are in charge. So it was a mistake, and it's unfortunate, of course. when I understand, because I saw the picture the other day, when Donald Tusk and Juncker came in 2017, they were sitting in, as I understood, in together with President Erdogan in 3 separate chairs, but looking at each other, and so which means that they were all, they were considered as equal, the head of Commission as well as the head of European Council. So that's a mistake, and I don't think it was intentional at all. And secondly, on the bilateral relations with between European Union and Turkey, as you know, Turkey has been announced as a candidate country to become a member of the European Union in 1999. The negotiations started in 2005, and since then, a few chapters were opened, but without much progress, because Cyprus blocked some chapters. Then during Sarkozy times, a few other chapters were blocked, and the government, actually the current government, didn't seem as enthusiastic as at the initial stage. So it was frozen, and in 2016, especially after the coup attempt in Turkey and the measures taken by the government, the relationship has become even more problematic. And the negotiations which were planned for the modernization of the customs union agreement were postponed. There was a visa lifting, agreement, which was also postponed. Then the migration issue has become also a huge problem. Then there was an agreement in 2018. Unfortunately, the relationship has never been easy, but it's gone down and down. Now in the communiques, declarations of the European Union, we see that Turkey is not mentioned as a candidate country anymore, which upsets, of course, the Turkish people especially. I don't know about the Turkish government, but the people like me, for instance, who are supportive of Turkey's European vocation, are very much disappointed, and we don't know whether the relationship will be normalized somehow in the near future. So there is now, after the March summit decisions, there's now hope that the negotiations on the customs union agreement may start sometime, in the coming months, if the Turkish government is considered behaving well, especially in the Eastern Mediterranean. The withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention is, of course, from my point of view, is a huge mistake, and I don't think it should have happened. In Turkey, also, both the opposition parties as well as the civil society are, standing against such a decision. I understood that during the talks, the head of Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and Charles Michel raised this issue, but they said they were not able to convince President Erdogan to reverse his decision. So it doesn't look promising. But on the other hand, as you said, the crimes, the violence against women in Turkey is increasing. That's a fact. So that's the situation. And if you ask my opinion about the EU-Turkey's relations, I think we should try to be pragmatic, to focus more on areas where we can make progress for the time being, until we see a growing political will on both sides to take them further. But let me add this: I never dealt directly with the with these issues. I focus more on NATO issues. I spent 10 years in NATO affairs, also in the Middle East somehow, but on the Middle East, but as well as on the UN. EU is not an area where I could be considered as an expert, but I'm a little puzzled by the attitude, by the positions of individual EU members. European Union is actually a very important organization or union, and I think it has a great potential, political as well as economic, of course. It's more successful in the economic field, but less in the political field. It wasn't really able to become a major political player, global political player, the full potential was not, was not fully used so far. And I think Turkey could contribute to the success of the European Union if it was kept closer. And as to the specific countries, if I were really a Greek, and I discussed this with Greek diplomats, and I will always have very good friends from the Greeks, as well as Greek Cypriot diplomats. I think if I were a Greek or a Greek Cypriot, I would rather prefer to keep Turkey closer to the Union, and because of the geography, we will always be a neighbor to those two countries. And Turkey, on the other hand, it has a great potential. It's growing both economically, militarily, and it's become a regional power. And whatever I admit that Turkey at the moment is not well governed, but it will continue to become. Also population-wise, it's 83 million, and it's projected to become 93 million in 10-15 years. So that's a big country. And instead of keeping such a country at arm's length, I would prefer to see it within, next to them, because it's in their advantage actually to have closer, friendly, amicably, and partnership relations with such a country, rather than trying to keep them away. Thank you.
I think there are a few outstanding questions remaining and not so much time. So I'll give them to you all together. Maybe you can go through them in the order that works for you. So one is, are you able to use your experience in your life now, in your retirement life, let's say? And another one is, what advice would you have to professionals starting out in diplomacy?
Sorry, can you repeat the second question, Irma?
What advice would you have for young diplomats starting out now?
Oh, okay. Yes.
World, and especially about languages. How important is it for them to learn the language or use the language of the country they're posted to? There was one that I quite liked. What keeps you going? What inspires you and motivates you, especially when things get tough? And what was your favorite post? Maybe you can leave that to the last one. That's always a tricky one.
Okay. At present, actually, it's been almost a little more than 2.5 years that I left my last position in The Hague, and after I came back, we wanted to settle in a small town. Those who know Turkey would know Bodrum. So it's a summer resort, and we had already a summer house there. Then we bought an old house within the town, which is just 15 kilometers away. So we live in winter within the town, then we move to the summer house in summer. So I can't complain about our life. Actually, Irmak knows where it is. But still, I was invited to be a board member at a think tank in Istanbul. So before the pandemics, I used to attend their meetings. And now we are doing, of course, online on Zoom. I was invited to speak actually in several places, especially in 2018 and 19. I went to a few other countries. And I'm in contact with another think tank in Washington, another one in London. So I think so far, maybe I could do more, but so far I was able to use some of my experience, especially in the field of disarmament, chemical disarmament as well as nuclear disarmament, in certain actually meetings, projects, and so on. I'm involved in a working group in London on nuclear risk reduction measures. So we are preparing a proposal for the nuclear powers to be considered sometime this year. So advice for young diplomats, language-wise, first of all, I think definitely the diplomats, whether young or old, they should try to learn the language of countries where they are posted. I couldn't do it. I admit that I couldn't learn the Arabic before I went to Syria. So I spoke a little afterwards, but it wasn't sufficient, nor Hebrew in Israel. In Israel, I didn't feel much actually, because a difficulty in communicating with the local people. Everyone spoke English, so that wasn't a big issue. But it's a huge advantage actually if you are able to communicate with the local people, not only with the foreign ministry or defense ministry, whomever you contact professionally, but contacts with people will become much easier, and it's important, I guess. So for young diplomats, I would certainly advise to try to learn. And many ministries now, including Turkish Foreign Ministry, have programs for languages. And the United States has always had such programs. So the American diplomats who served in Turkey, many of them spoke fluently the Turkish. So and of course they are very much well received. In addition to the language issue, I think when they are posted to a foreign country, I would advise them actually to go and visit the journalists, the academia, the think tanks, which I did actually in Israel. It's important to feel the pulse of society, and also what's really important for them to learn more about their culture, their behavior, and some stage you benefit from such contacts. And as to my favorite posting, I mean, Israel was my first ambassadorship, and this was quite challenging for me because it's not an easy country in many respects. The Israelis are not easy, but on the other hand, I was lucky because the relationship between my country and Israel at that time in 1999 was excellent. And after a month or a month and a half, I arrived to Tel Aviv. An earthquake happened in Turkey, and the Israeli people actually ran to help. Actually, both financially, they organized several fundraising activities, and in-kind aid was collected. So they invited me to such events, which I did, and I suddenly have become very well known by the people. I mean, the people in the streets were knowing me, and they invited me to TV programs and in one or two occasions with the Greek colleague, because an earthquake also happened in Greece. So we were very well received in Israel, and we spent there a little more than 3 years. And it was actually very professionally rewarding, but also, in terms of our life, daily life, in spite of the difficulties, Second Intifada at that time, and so on, we did a great time, I should say, yeah. So that's
also for me, it was a lovely time there.
Yes.
And let's hope that things will also go back to or go to better, let's say, relations in the region with Turkey and other countries. But that's all the time we had, but I'll pass it back to Anjum maybe to wrap up.
Thank you, Irmak. Ambassador Uzumcu, thank you so much for inspiring us. Thank you for sharing your stories. You have left the attendees and me energized, and we are profoundly grateful. Irmak, you are fabulous. Thank you for your excellent moderation. We look forward to seeing both of you again in future series, and we will be contacting you independently after this. Thank you to all the attendees, and special thanks to our partners in this mission, Professors Without Borders from the United Kingdom. If you haven't looked at their website yet, I urge you to please do so. Thank you, especially Caroline. We are most appreciative. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next month at our session with Ambassador Simp. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much to all.
Bye, everyone.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.